So this is my big teaching semester. I'm teaching one undergrad class with about 500 students, one MBA class with almost 300, and one PhD class with much less. So I teach all the time, and my classes are very popular. But I actually had lots of terrible experiences with teaching, and some curious ones. So here is the most interesting teaching experience I ever had. So this was my second year as an assistant professor, and I was teaching the MBA executives at MIT. This was a group of people who paid lots of money to get this education, and I was teaching them a class on introduction to marketing. And basically in the beginning of the class I told them, look, you have the textbook, you can study the textbook, I'm not interested in it, I'll test you on it, and I'm going to teach you other things that are not in the textbook. And we started and we talked about all kinds of how people make decisions, and customers and consumers, and how people think about them and so on. And they became more and more uneasy and unresting, and they came back to me and they said they wanted marketing frameworks. What are marketing frameworks? Sometimes it's a box with 2 by 2 and you have to decide something, and sometimes it's some boxes and arrows. Anyway, they wanted those things. They wanted some acronyms, the 3 Ps or the 4 Cs, all kinds of things like that. Anyway, I kept on telling them, no marketing frameworks. You want frameworks, go to the textbook. I'm teaching you other things you can't get in a textbook. Then we got to the middle of the term evaluations, and they evaluated me, and I got hammered like I never got hammered in my life. And they basically were complaining, and they said, you don't understand, we're your customers. And if we tell you that we need marketing framework, we need marketing framework. And I tried to resist. I said, you don't know what you need. You think you know, you think this is a good thing for you, but they insisted. So you know what? The next time I came to class and I said, today we are going to do marketing frameworks. Everybody sat up. They were finally excited. Things were going, they're going to study something useful. They took their pens out, their pencils, they were starting to write. And I said that in marketing there are 2 important frameworks. The FN frameworks and the LN frameworks. And they vary in complexity. The FN framework is simple, the LN framework is more complex. Let's start talking about those. The FN frameworks has 3 components. Design. Design of the product. Why is this important? People raise their hand, they participate, they add, they contribute, all is good. Adoption. Why is the adoption of the process? Understanding how the project gets adopted is so important. People participated, hands up. Finally, new product. Why is it important to have a cycle of new products? Anyway, 15 minutes into it, we covered the FN framework. Then we got to the LN framework, a more important, slightly more complex framework. And the the LN framework has 6 components. Attitude. Why is the attitude of your customers important? Research, image, education, learning, and finally yield. Of course, very important. Anyway, this is kind of 45 minutes into it. We discuss each of the elements, how they're important, how they help us understand the world. Why are those the elements so important? And after the 45 minutes, everybody was really pleased. We got really through a lot of material, a lot of understanding, lots of insight about how these frameworks organize the world of marketing. And then I said, like all good marketing frameworks, these frameworks too have acronyms. So let's look at the FN framework. Design, adoption, new product. And I wrote it across the board. And then I showed them what the acronyms are. D, A, N. And this was the FN framework. What's the LN framework? Attitude, research, image, education, learning, and yield. A-R-I-E-L-Y. Ariely, Dan Ariely. And of course, what is FN and LN? FN is first name, LN is last name. And of course, if you thought the students hated me before that, you should have seen the end of the term evaluations. But the point, I think, is correct. The point is that we often can create frameworks, and even though I made fun of them, the fact is we create these frameworks at the moment when you think about them, they make obvious sense. And the way you think about it is, what else could it be? And if it doesn't get you to think differently, how useful is it? And those things that look so intuitive are often not very useful. The other point is that we can often force the world into some framework without it being very useful. And by doing that, we often don't look at the nuances and don't evaluate situation close to each other. At the end of the term, there were 2 groups of the students who wrote me their final paper. And guess what frameworks they used to analyze their project? of course, the FN and the LN framework. And they told me at the end, they had a PS, and they said they realized I was making fun of them. And they realized that they could use those frameworks to analyze their problem, and thereby lies the problem. So anyway, I hope you will use those frameworks as well. Go forth.